Hello and welcome to the Lakehead Children's Water Festival. It's virtual for 2021 and I'm Rena Viebeck, the Education Coordinator with the Lakehead Region Conservation Authority. Let's go and discover water. Hi everyone. So today's Lakehead Children's Water Festival, we're going to start with a model of the Lakehead Watershed. And we're going to use this really wonderful model to demonstrate how stormwater connects us all and how it ends up flowing into Lake Superior and what potentially can go with it. So if we look at our model here, we can see that wherever the water falls, if it were to rain on here, it would end up flowing downstream. Gravity pulls it downstream and brings it to a central body of water. In our case, that's Lake Superior, here at the bottom. When we have rainwater that lands in a natural area with trees, wetlands, vegetation, and soil, that water can get soaked in. And that's represented here on our model with green felt and some trees. And that water will get filtered from the contaminants and cleaned as it flows downstream. If we replace those areas with parking lots, buildings, roads, and other impervious surfaces, then the stormwater has to travel overland. Now, in a city or an urban area, we have designed the areas to bring that water quickly away from our living spaces, our houses, our industrial area, so that we don't have flooding. But what happens is that whatever water then falls, it will take with it the contaminants that are on the ground. So we're going to demonstrate this by doing a little tour around our model, and we're going to look at what contaminants might be there and how they might end up in Lake Superior and the body of water that's at the bottom of our watershed. We're going to start here in our residential area. Here we have some houses, driveways. Yes, we've got some nice greenery, which is great, some trees, and we also have driveways and roads. So in this area, we can have some contaminants such as soap from washing cars outside. So I'm going to put a few drops here. We can have gas that leaks maybe when we were filling up our lawnmower. And we can have some pesticides or insecticides that were used maybe on lawns to help them stay really green. So I'm dropping a few drops of food coloring to represent those contaminants. So now let's move over to our industrial area. We've got some larger buildings, some additional parking and impervious areas. Although industries are mandated and are good at following regulations on not letting contaminants get into water, they do end up using a lot of water with their processes, and warm water will get released with those processes. And warm water goes directly into our creeks and rivers and then flows downstream, which can have an effect on the biodiversity. So I'm adding a few drops of blue food coloring here to represent the warmer water. Here on our road, we have a nice driving vehicle driving along, but sometimes accidents do happen. Cars sometimes break down. So there are contaminants that come out of that, whether it's leaking oil, fuel, antifreeze, and they're going to go directly onto the road where they will stay in place until some water comes along. So I'm going to add a few yellow food coloring to represent those contaminants and a little bit of oil from the oil that's come out of the car. Now right now, those contaminants are all staying in place thus far. We can see that we're going to have a rain event eventually, a precipitation event, and then we'll see what's happened. But right now, our Lake Superior water is clean and pristine with no contaminants. Also along the roadway is during the winter, we have gravel and road salt that's spread out, and that's to help keep us safe and prevent accidents from happening. But come winter thaw, when the snow melts and that precipitation, that will also run carrying lots of salt into our water. Okay, finally we're going to move over to our farm area, where farmers have both livestock and crops. Now the livestock produce a lot of manure, and that is sort of a byproduct of having livestock. Now that manure can be used in crops and used as a fertilizer. So it's not just thrown out. So it's dropped here around the barn, and then it's spread out around the fields. So I'm going to use some hot chocolate mix to represent the brown manure. We're going to put a whole bunch of that around the farm area and on the farmland. Now right now there are, as I mentioned, these green felt pads which are representative of wetlands. Now what's going to happen is as the water runs downstream and moves with gravity towards the lowest point, Lake Superior, these wetlands and shoreline riparian zones are going to filter out contaminants. But if we remove some of these, then we no longer have that protection. So by removing wetlands, and we can replace this waterfront wetland with a really great marina. And of course we need some additional farmland, so we'll remove that wetland as well, which would have prevented manure from entering Lake Superior. Now remember, Lake Superior is where the city of Thunder Bay gets its drinking water. So right now it's nice and pristine and clean, but we are now going to have some rain falling on our watershed model. Our spray bottle here is representing a precipitation event, so something like rain, or it could be snow or melting snow. And we're going to spray it on our watershed model. And you can see right now nice, clean drinking water for the city of Thunder Bay in Lake Superior. Also wonderful habitat for the animals, the vegetation that lives in and around Lake Superior. We're going to start our rainstorm over on the residential area. Now remember, there was soap, there was some gas, there was some herbicides and pesticides here, and they stayed in place until this water event happened. As we talked about, water flows downstream, and in a watershed, that ends up flowing to the lowest body of water, which in our case is Lake Superior. Now, if we are to compare stormwater, which is what's happening with a rain event, to sanitary sewers, this water goes directly to our streams, our water, our creeks, without going through any processing plant. Whereas our sanitary sewers, things you flush down the drain, or that go down the drain or flush down a toilet, they go through a pollution control plant, and they get filtered. That water gets filtered and sort of restored. Whereas this goes right directly across the land or through those square grates, and those are the storm drains, and bring the water as quickly as possible away from urban areas to prevent flooding. So we've had a really nice big rainstorm here on our residential area. We can see that Lake Superior has now, and the creeks and the low areas along the way, have received both the water that fell and the contaminants along with it. We're going to now move over to our industrial area. We remember that although they're good at following regulations about what can and can't go down drains, their water gets heated up. And so having water that's hotter than is expected, that's been on impervious areas like roofs and parking lots, it heats up. And this can affect wildlife and vegetation as well, making it less habitable. And a lot of plants, and specifically animals, rely on certain water temperatures for survival. So we can see this has now had a good rainstorm, and it's traveled and followed the creeks downstream and is mixing in at Lake Superior. So now we head back to visit our accident, our car accident here, where oil was leaked, gasoline was leaked, and other fluids that are in the cars. We've also got the road salt and gravel, which is mixing as the water falls, and it's traveling across our landscape and across our watershed. And remember, we took out the wetlands that would have filtered out some of those contaminants. And so this is traveling directly into Lake Superior, our drinking water source for the city of Thunder Bay. And we visit back to our farmland where there's manure that's coming from the livestock and spread over the crops. And this carries with it a lot of phosphorus, a lot of nitrogen, which is great for plant growth, but too much or an excess amount of it means you have excessive plant growth like algae blooms and other negative consequences in the growth of plants and animals in our watershed. So we can see that all this big rain event, this big precipitation event that happened on our watershed has now resulted in water flowing down, stormwater flowing down to Lake Superior. And our water is no longer as pristine or superior as we would like it to be. If it's going to be our drinking water, it's going to be enjoyed for fishing, for recreation, paddling, swimming, and also the wildlife that depend on it, the vegetation that depend on it. It's no longer as healthy as it could or should be. And so this is where we can take a moment to reflect on how important it is that each one of our actions, no matter where we are within the watershed, affect each other and affect the water quality. So things that happen upstream eventually will flow downstream and end up in Lake Superior. And so let's all remember that we all play a part in keeping our water healthy, no matter where we are.
Welcome to Ontario Power Generation. Today we're going to talk about the power of water. Hello, my name's Tanali Hardy, and I work for a place called Ontario Power Generation. At OPG, we use the power of water to make hydroelectricity. What you see in front of you today is a model of a hydroelectric station. Some hydroelectric stations look like this, may be close to you and in your backyard. One in our area is Kekabeka Generating Station. So what we have here, this right here, is called a powerhouse. This is where the water goes into the powerhouse from up in this area called a forebay. Water goes into the forebay, into the powerhouse, down these big long tubes called penstocks, and it ends up coming out down the system, through onto the river and on its natural way. Inside the powerhouse is a big spinning wheel called a turbine. Once the power of the water comes down a penstock and hits the turbine, there's two magnets at the top that go in different directions, a magnet with a rotor and a stator. Those rubbing together make electricity that go out into the grid to power your homes. This is our spillway. When Mother Nature gives us too much water, we need to be able to pass the water so it doesn't go over top of the dam or in around the dam, flooding our environment around us. So we would open the spillway, water would come down and on its way out. So, say you get up in the morning and you're turning the lights on and your parents or guardians are making breakfast. The need for power is required. So we turn on a few units at Kekabeka Generating Station. So what you can see in behind you here is it's starting to fill up with water. So water's coming out of the station and heading on down the river system. So once you get to school and people go to work and the whole community turns their lights on, the need for power increases. So we have to turn more units on our generating station. So what you can see down here is it starts to flood and we've got water coming up on the embankments. So if you were standing somewhere in the water down here, you would get washed away. For our safety, we've got signs posted that say, danger, dam ahead, keep out. And we also have booms to keep you on the safe side of a generating station. And we've got signs up on top ahead of the powerhouse on our property to help you to stay clear, stay safe, and keep out. Now, when we have lots of water coming down the system, we will turn a siren on. This is a noise that you would hear at Kekabeka Generating Station, telling you to get out of the way, water is coming. Here at Ontario Power Generation, we use the power of water to power about 25% of the province's electricity. We also have nuclear power and solar power. But hydroelectric power is a clean, green, environmentally friendly way to make electricity. So like I mentioned during our presentation, what makes electricity is a big wheel spinning, which we call a turbine, which we have here, and we use the power of water to spin the turbine to make electricity, which would light up here. So if you were with me today and on a normal year and these trying times weren't with us, you would be able to use our water gun over here, and you'd be the power of water streaming your power to hit this turbine and to make our own electricity right here. So we're going to try it today, and you're going to see how I do it, and hopefully next year you can be right here with me making your own power. And that's the power of water making hydroelectricity.
Hello, I'm Gail Willis from Lakehead Region Conservation Authority. I'm the Watershed Manager, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about green infrastructure. So here we have a whole bunch of materials. Rock, little stones, and this is called pea gravel. And then some more sandy type soil. And wood chips, which is also called mulch. So in big cities, we have parking lots and sidewalks and all kinds of rooftops where rain just flows right off and into the grass. So what we want to do is try to reduce or make the impervious areas smaller by introducing green infrastructure. And the way we do that is we take out the asphalt and we incorporate something called bioretention areas, and this is sort of an example of one of them. So what we do is take off the asphalt, and then we dig all the way down to the ground where there's just sand, and then we build it back up with a whole bunch of different materials that rainwater can go through. So once we've dug our hole, we will add some big stone, usually about this size. This is about 1 inch. So we'll fill it up with the stone, usually about 2 feet, so about this much of little stones that the water can filter through. And then on top of that, we put these little pea stones, and sometimes we put pipes with holes in it. So when the water comes through and there's too much water, the water will go through the pipe. And then on top of our pea stone, we will put a sandy type soil like this one where plants will grow. And then we dig holes for the plants, and they go in this here, and they all the water filters through the plants. And then through the pea stone, through the pipe, and then also through the rock and into the ground. We also put mulch on the very top where the plants go. So when it does rain, the wood gets saturated or filled with water, so the plants will still live and it won't be too dry for them. So when you incorporate all of these things, the green infrastructure, sometimes called a bioretention facility, it's almost like a sponge. So if you think of it that way, so we're taking out hard surfaces that water doesn't go through to sponges. So if you think of it like a sponge city, all over the place will be these little sponges where plants will grow, and water will filter back down into the ground and into the groundwater and supply clean water for our lakes and our streams.
Welcome to our teeth brushing demonstration. What we have here today with my helpers is we're going to pretend to brush our teeth. I'm going to actually brush my teeth, and we're going to look at the small action of brushing our teeth and how it can make a huge impact on how much water we use. So here's how it's going to work, girls. In this sink, we're going to let the water run while we're brushing our teeth. For this sink, we're going to only turn it on while we get our toothbrushes wet and then while we rinse them, okay? And then we're going to see how much water we used and compare the two. Are we ready? So what I'll do is we'll turn both taps on at the same time. I'm also going to time it for just 1 minute, and if you're doing this at home, you can do the same thing and use a bucket in your sink to compare the amount of water that's coming out of your tap. Okay, so we're going to wet our toothbrushes. Are we ready? And I'm going to start my 1 minute timer. Ready, set, turn it on. We'll wet our toothbrushes. This one's going to stay on, this one we're going to turn off. We've now got our toothbrushes wet and we're timing. 1 minute has already started. Make sure your teeth are nice and clean. I love brushing my teeth. Do you guys? It's already been 20 seconds. The water is running. Okay. We're going to do a little more teeth brushing and then we're going to rinse our toothbrushes. Seconds. Okay, let's rinse our toothbrushes. You can use that one. Use a little bit of water. Okay, and we turn that one off. And this one we can turn off. Our timer for 1 minute is up. So now we're going to compare our two sinks and how much water came out of each tap while we were brushing our teeth for 1 minute. This is the tap where we turned it off in between. We turned the tap on to wet our toothbrushes and then to rinse at the end. We've got, I don't know, just a couple cups here. And this tap we left running for the whole 1 minute while we brushed our teeth. And look at how much water is in there. Liters and liters of water. A lot more water. Now remember, every time water goes down our drains, it's reused again and it has to get cleaned and filtered at a water pollution plant. So that uses energy. We can save water by doing small things that mean we don't use as much water. So what kind of things can you guys think of that would help save water use in and around the house? Kara?
So you just rinse your toothbrush and then get the toothpaste on, and then you just start scrubbing your teeth for 5 minutes or over.
Yeah. So only turning the water on when you need to rinse your toothbrush.
Yeah,
turning it off in between.
Right.
So all water is reused, and so in order to reuse it, we have to treat it and clean it. Livia, what other ways could we use around the house to save water? What about when you're having a bath? Should we fill the bathtub all the way up?
No, about halfway.
Yeah, about halfway should be good. Or how about having long showers that feel so nice?
No.
Try having a shorter shower?
Yeah.
What about if our taps are having just tiny drips? Should we fix that leak?
Yes.
Yeah, leaks can add up. A drip like that could add up to liters and liters every day. So it's important to look for small ways to save water because they add up. You know what another thing to think about is? That was just 1 minute of toothbrushing, and look at how much water we used. What if I brushed my teeth at a different time than you brushed your teeth and you brushed our teeth and Daddy brushed his teeth? Now we'd have 4 times this amount of water. And what about if we brushed our teeth 2 times a day and then every day? That's a lot of water being used. So it's important to remember to look for lots of ways to save a little bit of water here and there because it all adds up. And all water needs to be cleaned and treated to be used again. So save energy and save water by fixing leaks and reducing your water usage.